How's it going, guys? Remember us? It's been a while, but Phil Talk Sports is back. Blake Blahut is here with me, and it's been over a month since the last episode. Blake and I were talking about the anticipation of the college football season and the UCF football season in general. And in the blink of an eye, we're already at the midway point. So, Blake, thanks for being here again, man. We originally were going to do this after the North Carolina game that we were both at. Blake was nice enough to invite me to. We had a great time, great win. Then life took hold, and then we're like, let's just make it a even bye-week mid-season check-in. So the bye week was perfectly in the middle of the season. Seemed like a great time to do it. So, Blake, thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me back.
So lots of highs and lows so far in this season. You can say that about most seasons, but this one has truly been, 3 straight wins, 3 straight losses, and then, breaking that losing streak against West Virginia this past week. So I think we get mentioned as like overly positive people sometimes, and I think that's because most people on the internet are overly negative. So we're trying to tug the ship in the other direction at least a little bit. So we are going to try and tackle both the positives and the negatives of this season. I don't know where we want to start necessarily. I guess we'll just kind of go in order as close as much as we can, just a little bit of everything up to this point. A month, 5 weeks ago, we were sitting here. We still didn't know who the starting quarterback was at the time. And I knew this would happen right as we put the episode out. I think the next day they announced, Cam Fancher was going to be the starter. So we were incorrect in the sense that I don't think either of us picked Cam, but we were correct in the sense that the real correct answer turned out to be Taven Jackson. And really, in the limited time that all the quarterbacks outside of Jackson have gotten, I guess we'll start on a somewhat negative note. How did they come to that conclusion at the end of camp when it appears that was the worst of the 3 options? Maybe even 4th options based on how Davey played at the end of that West Virginia game. But that's something that's been in my head the past couple of weeks, actually. What do you think?
Yeah, to be honest, I think that what Frost really liked about Fancher was, and you've seen glimpses of it, especially even in the Cincinnati game, even though, that was one of a part of the losing streak. He had moments where he, for the most part, took care of the football. He was very poised. I think that he had probably at least 30 yards, might have been more, but at least 30 yards that were just wiped off the board because of penalties that had nothing to do with him. He made the right call, made the right play, made the right throw. I think Fancher, though, I think he just has that experience and has like a really good sense of being a poised quarterback. And I know historically and statistically speaking, he has turned over the football quite a bit, but perhaps he kind of turned a corner in camp, and Frost felt like he was just the right guy for the job. And even though while Taven Jackson might be a little bit more dynamic, particularly on the passing game, he probably just felt that Fancher was a little bit more of a steady hand, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it in many places, even in our extremely limited athletic careers, that there's guys that do it in practice and there's guys that do it in the game. And it's very possible that Fancher was just one of those guys that popped in practice. And you mentioned you saw flashes of it. You have seen flashes of it. I think consistency is where the trouble was there. And that's just where Taven Jackson, negatives there too early on with him as well. But again, not thinking you're going to be the starter and then becoming the starter, there's always going to be a little bit of growing pains. But it's no doubt in my mind that he is the best answer through these 7 games we know. We've known for about probably by the end of the North Carolina game that he was the right choice. And barring any injuries, which he did sustain some, he was going to be the guy at quarterback. And other than those injuries, when they had other guys in, Ja'Cory Brown has not been back from his injury yet. I don't know if that's going to change after this bye week, but we look at that first game. You look at the losses, and I think the one that hurts is the Kansas game. That was, you get stuffed 4 times at the goal line. They really just ran it straight ahead. I think the quarterback run on the 4th down, and Scott Frost fully admitted, I could have got a little more creative, but also we're at the 1. We should have gotten in. So while that one hurts to lose, I think we're right where we should be, because you go to that Jackson State game, Jacksonville State, excuse me, and when that hit happened to Fancher that injured him initially, if that's not called targeting, which is the correct call looking back on it, if that ball scooped and scored for a touchdown, maybe Taven doesn't have the chance to drive down the field and throw to DJ Black and win the game. So we're right where we should be. We lost one we should have won, and maybe we got away with one that wasn't really our night. So at 4-3, realistically, and even the Cincinnati game was kind of ugly. Kansas, we had our moments, but I think truthfully at 4-3, we are right where we ought to be right now.
Yeah, no, I agree with that assessment because I think that in a lot of people, and you can see on the internet, depending on how much you read or not, there's a lot of people that feel like, hey, it was just not a good season. But I think that the more, for lack of a better way of putting it, the more practical fans have come to the realization that this is a rebuild year, and even just going to a bowl game, I think, is just proves that we're probably on a much better trajectory than we were from the last coaching regime, if you will. I really think that you can even make the debate that ever so slightly ahead of schedule. I think that if we pull out this next game, which I'm sure we're going to touch on at least a little bit tonight, I do think that you can even make the argument that, hey, we're a little bit ahead of schedule compared to what many people would probably think, especially considering that while there wasn't an official preseason poll this year, if I recall, for the Big 12 conference, there was a lot of people like just in the mainstream media that really picked us to finish last or towards the bottom. And I think that with this next upcoming win, knock on wood, God willing, that would at least put us kind of more in the middle of the pack.
Yeah, Big 12 wisely did do away with the preseason poll after last season where Arizona State was picked last and ended up winning the league. So they're like, let's not put our foot in our mouth anymore. But there was other outlets that put, ratings out, and UCF was at the bottom or near the bottom. So similar chip on the shoulder for sure. But you mentioned the Baylor thing. To me, this is the game of the season for the reason being we both put the expectation of like the realistic goals should be to be bowl eligible. And as you sit here with the 4 wins, Oklahoma State is having a terrible season later in the year. That's the other one that you think you can go out and get if you play up to your ability. This is the other one that I think Baylor's favored by like 3.5. It is at home for them. It is homecoming. People always like talk about our attendance. Baylor's attendance has been terrible this year for good reason. The stuff they have, going on over there. This is the one you got to go out and get. I think this gives you your 5th win. The Oklahoma State game, you win if you play up to your ability. The other one I look at, I realize Houston is ranked, but that is the space game. We don't lose space games. That was a quote from last year, and we've beaten Houston. We've been beating Houston as a ranked team back since the CUS days. So that is another one I look at. If those all go to plan, that's a 7-win season going into the bowl, potentially 8-win season. That is 100% above any expectation that a reasonable person gave them. But to me, this is really, other than Oklahoma State, this is the last game that you should win if you play up to your ability. Any other game left on the schedule, the other 3 are 3 ranked teams. You're going to have to play up to your ability and then some and hope they have an off night. Just plain English. That's kind of how those games need to go. But to me, this is the last, even though we're technically underdogs, this is the last game of the year that, you have to go out and get. It's not going to be handed to you. You might have one more of those on the schedule based on what Oklahoma State's going through. But this one's really going to show us, I think, what this team's made of. It's crazy you have to wait 9 weeks into a season, 10 weeks into a season to find that out. But I think we're going to be, dare I say, relatively healthy for this game. All the little nicks and bruises, the bye week came at the perfect time. This might be the most ready to roll this team has been all year. And we're just going to have to see what they're made of going into this one.
No, I agree. And honestly, I know Baylor, they've kind of had kind of a similar season. I think they even have the same record, if I recall correctly, or they're 4-4 maybe. They kind of had some ups and downs, had some good games, had some really rotten games. So I think that this game they're gonna play the best they can. I think that Dave Aranda, their coach, while there's been some speculations about his job, but that's a whole other conversation. I do believe that they're going to play for him. So I don't think that this is by any means going to be like hey, we're just going to do what we did to West Virginia or anything really close to that. I think it's going to be a close game. I do think whoever wins, it's going to be by a touchdown margin or less. I think I will take the over though. I don't think it's going to be. I don't think it's necessarily going to be 3 points, but 4, 5, 7, something like that. So I do like the way we presented ourselves, especially offensively and defensively, but offensively for sure against West Virginia. And I think that there's something to say about momentum. And I know that, Scott Frost touched on it very briefly on his press conference about momentum. And once you have it, it can be a very powerful thing. And once you lose it, it can be detriment to your season. So I do think that we kind of have the upper hand right now. I know Baylor's coming off of a loss. Now, granted, they were playing a ranked and very solid and quite frankly better than I expected Cincinnati. So that could also play to our benefit that, they're coming off a tough loss and why I'm wearing this hat is, I want to have some, Fiesta Bowl vibes. If we can win in a shootout that's reminiscent to that game, I'd be happy to.
I noticed the hat right when you came on at first because I have it sitting over there. I'm like, I haven't thrown that on in a while. And then I realized Baylor, and it was the perfect thing to wear for today. And, we brought up the good memory of Baylor. I don't really want to talk about the Baylor, but whatever the lead is at any point, it's not going to be enough. So however this breaks down, another interesting element for this game kicks off at noon where we sit here in Central Florida. This will be an 11 a.m. kickoff in Baylor. It is homecoming. Their attendance has been shoddy throughout the year. Reason to believe at 11 a.m. kick, it might even be less than their average, and their average has been disappointing. So the crowd may be a absolute non-factor. Their stadium, it's funny to look this up. It's only about 10,000 more than UCF Stadium. UCF always gets maybe not the lower level, the power or the group of 5 level stadiums anymore, but it's on the smaller side of the spectrum in college football. And Baylor's isn't particularly much more than us, but they're only expecting maybe 20, 25,000 at this game. They're expecting an MLS type crowd for this. So that's going to put it into, more, not in our favor, but it's not going to give them the advantage that a normal homecoming game would give you. It's almost, if anything, it's neutralized. So that's, very helpful. I don't know. I think Night Nation will make, their presence known, whether it be 100 people or 1,000 people. They find a way to get those UCF chants, on TV. So I think the presence will be known. Talking about TV real quick, just from my production background, I am curious if it wasn't just me, and there's plenty of praise to this. If every one of our games could be on TNT from now on, I'd be for it, because I thought that broadcast was just head and shoulders above what we've been seeing recently on these other outlets. I don't know, watching that, did you notice this just feels bigger than we've been seeing?
Yeah, no, of course. And I know that from my understanding, while the viewership of our West Virginia game wasn't particularly strong, I didn't watch the game, but I did watch the highlights on YouTube, which I like to normally do. And the snippets of the presentation of it just seemed really on point. And not to, hate on ESPN too much, but it seems like whenever it's an ESPN Plus game, they really don't, always maybe use the best resources for giving the best, presentation, if you will, for when it comes to just the broadcasting standpoint of it. So, I think that this would be a really good thing for us to be featured on TNT more, because again, it's also a mainstream channel. And I do expect that we probably will find ourselves on that broadcast, maybe even once more this season, and then probably next season 2 or 3 times, assuming that the partnership, which I do believe is going to be extended, if not already, with the Big 12 conference being a participant on TNT. So.
Blake, they brought their own sky cam. If that's not trying to make a good first impression, they brought their own. They set it up in the stadium. I don't know, stuff like that. That's your way to my heart, as a fan. So no, that was incredible. But we talked about Baylor. I kind of laid out the roadmap ahead. Oklahoma State, in this league, anybody can beat anybody, but you like to think you can circle that one as a win. The Houston one, again, space game. You can't really quantify that in the stat sheet. The other two are going to be tough. There's no other way to put it. With was it BYU and what's our other? We have one
Texas Tech
and Texas Tech. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
So maybe you'll catch lightning in a bottle in one of those. I mean, it's entirely possible depending on what happens with those teams. But I think 6-6 is really where the goal should be, and by goal I mean the floor. I think we could easily get more than that, but we are right where we basically said we would be moving into this point. And it feels good to have reasonable expectation. Obviously you're going to find people that are honestly, I'm going to correct myself. I've not seen a lot of ridiculously underperforming. There's been bad moments in this season, like there always will be. But let's play this game. What has been your what's like a positive, your biggest positive and your biggest negative takeaway this far into the season?
Well, the biggest positive is I think that despite the rotating door at quarterback, so we've literally played 4 different quarterbacks, and usually when you have that situation, you usually have a losing record. So I like to think that it's attributed to good coaching. So maybe let's give Mackenzie Milton a little bit of some credit as the quarterback coach.
It's actually been 5 quarterbacks if you count the 3 passes that Brock Hansel has thrown. But yeah, normally when that many guys have been playing that, this midway point of the season, it usually equates to negative things, to losses, to losing records. To your point, but yeah, I agree. I think we've weathered the storm of the quarterback race, and of course, keeping Taven Jackson healthy is going to be a number one priority moving forward. But yeah, I agree. That's definitely something positive to look at. What do you? And again, we're not overly negative people, but we don't mind. When it's there, we do talk about it. So what is your negative?
I feel like in maybe it's a play call thing, maybe it's a personnel thing, and I admit that like I only know what I know as a regular observer of football, but it seems like we just never had that offensive spark during that 3-game losing streak. Specifically against Cincinnati. I mean, it took us till the fourth quarter to get a touchdown, if I remember correctly. And of course, our defense has shown up for really every single game when you think about it. But during the losing streak, and that's the negative, and so I guess I'll kind of bundle a couple things into the negative point, if you will. But they're all tied together where we just couldn't score. And I know obviously the rotating door of the quarterback position probably has a lot to do with it, but I think that it's in the coordinator's job, it's the coach's job to find ways to win in creative ways when you can't play to your strengths. And those games are our defense held up their end of the bargain, but offensively speaking, I think that there could have been some things that could have been done, hopefully a little bit differently. That losing streak was the main thing that I would say was a negative, and the consistent thing with that was lack of offense.
I'll actually roll your negative into my negative, where I think where that comes from is we even, what are we, 7 games into the year, we still don't know who the go-to guy is on offense as far as a pass catching standpoint. There's been games where DJ Black was the hero. There's been games where Dummerkantz was the hero against West Virginia. Thomas Jr. made some pretty good catches. Was it Burke, the transfer from Florida? You can turn that into a positive in the sense that on any given day, any guy can go off. That can be a positive at times. But when you are game planning, you tend to game plan to get your best player open. And if you don't know who that guy is, there's even been times where the tight ends have shined, where Fox and Wade have made big catches, big touchdowns. So not that guys aren't making the most of their opportunity, but we still don't have anyone that has separated themselves. And maybe that will come second half of the year. But I guess the fact that it's still like you don't know who's going to go off, you don't know who to game plan to have a big game, could be part of it. And, you mentioned that spark doesn't really happen. I do think about like the Kansas game where you jump out 14-0 and end up, squandering it there at the end. But my positive on that is going to be that we knew Miles Montgomery. We know he's a solid, above average, very good back. Any given day, he's any of those things. What we didn't know is Jaden Nixon. We didn't really know a lot about him. We knew he was a great player where he came from, but his electricity and his ability to create a spark has definitely been the plus. I mean, he only has 100 yards less on the year than Montgomery, but he has 70 less carries. This guy is averaging 12 yards a carry, 6 touchdowns for him. It's really been, that's the closest thing to a spark plug that we have. You'd like to have some form of that in the passing game, but to have it in the running attack, which I think this year in particular, the running game was meant to be leaned on more. And I think we're finally figuring out how to do that. So I think that would be my positive.
Yeah, and just again, a unique statistic is that 15 players have a reception this year, and I believe there's only 5 of them that actually have double-digit receptions. So they kind of put it in perspective. It seems like the ball has to be spread around a lot because there's no like true go-to guy, like you're saying. So I think that it kind of speaks for itself. Now, the granted thing, the positive is it seems like even though just kind of like what, not to to quote Coach Frost, but he says, it's unproven talent, so to speak.
Right.
If you look at our receivers, they all seem a lot, or at least a few of them, that you can just notice, like, hey, he's quick. Hey, he knows how to get open. Hey, he's able to pull in the ball, and even though it's a tough pass or tough spot for the pass, it's unproven talent. And my hope is that those guys will, A, they stay, and B, they continue to grow. And who knows, maybe someone next year can emerge as that go-to wide receiver. Is it Marcus Burke? Maybe. I don't know. I like the way that he gets open, and he only has 11 receptions, but he's also, I believe, third in receiving yards this season. So there's a lot of really good things going on in that regard. And then spark plug wise, like you were saying with Jade Nixon, 12 yards a carry, that's phenomenal. And then, of course, you have Miles Montgomery, who's just that steady running back who's going to probably, do 14, 15 or more touches a game. So there are some positives on offense. Yes, for sure.
Yeah, you mentioned 15 different guys catch. I could double back here, and I don't know that 15 guys caught a pass all of last year with the previous regime. And if it is, it took all year to get to that point. So that does show the ability to, maybe a team like this doesn't need a receiver. It just needs a bunch of capable pass catchers. And that is so far what we've had. We're a few weeks away from it though, but do you remember when we used to have to wait till like the week of for like space uniforms to come out? I do like this new thing where you kind of get it a week, 2, 3 into the season. Quick thoughts on this year's space game uniforms. What do you think?
I'm going to be honest with you. They're okay. The numbers, they're different. And obviously, I mean, you can only do so many different types of, uniforms. And sometimes I can be critical of some things, but I will say that the space game uniforms, the jerseys specifically, I'm not too crazy about the numbers. Mm-hmm. However, the helmets, I saw the helmet kits and I love them. I love kind of, it has like a metallic spaceship kind of vibe. Right. And I did the fundraiser through the Charge On Fund to get the decal set. So
okay,
cool. Get that, and who knows, maybe I'll even throw it on a helmet. But yeah, so I will admit I'm not too crazy about the numbers specifically, but the jerseys overall look awesome, and I love the helmet.
So the helmet, like I think the jerseys I've liked in varying degrees in all of years. We've never missed on a helmet. The helmets are always great. So that's not surprising to me. I like this more. Last year's, the reason I actually don't mind waiting to find out, I didn't think I liked last year's, the moon dust one. I love the concept. I didn't think it was executed that great. And then I saw it on the field, and I'm like, you know what? Actually, these look really awesome. Some jerseys end up looking better in the promotional material than they do on the field, and some vice versa. So I don't mind necessarily waiting to see them on the field, but I agree, not my favorite, not at the bottom. I don't know if you have one that you dislike the most. I actually didn't like. So we did the Space U with the blue that I like. The RJ Harvey one we'll call because that's when he had that great game. But the year before, the all black one where we played Temple, I believe it was the Space U. That one was like the least creative one, I thought. Still better than what a lot of other teams put out. I mean, look at the monstrosity Miami wore last week. They're probably lucky it was camo because they didn't want people to see it. But so we always do better than most teams. So like even our bad is pretty good. So I don't know. Do you have a least favorite space? Do you have a favorite and a least favorite by chance?
So my favorite, I would say, is the 2019 one, which is the white one with the constellations on the sleeves. Yep. I just think it was just very clean. And then, of course, the moon helmet. I mean, that's just like that. I think, in my opinion, that's one, like, it has to be like, if they had to do like a Hall of Fame of college football helmets, that has to be like in the top like 25 helmets of like ever created. And mind you, there's probably thousands of variations of helmets at this point. So I loved that one, the 2019 season, where it was the white jersey with the constellations on the sleeves and then the moon helmet. A least favorite, when I know it, like, and of course you have to give them a little bit of leeway, but the first year that they introduced the space game, which I admit some people didn't seem all too excited or amped up about because they're kind of, okay, maybe they didn't really see like a tradition that was born literally. But the 2016 one, it was pretty much just a generic UCF jersey, if you will, for that time era. and but they threw some patches on it. So I think that year they kind of lacked creativity, but I will give them a little bit of leeway. It was the first year of introducing the game, so they probably didn't really have too much of inspiration, if you will, to do a super elaborate uniform yet.
Yeah, I'll push back slightly. I don't count that as something to pick because, like you said, it's literally, again, the helmet. They didn't miss with the helmet that year. They put that blue, fluorescent blue on the UCF logo. They did just patch. That would obviously be at the bottom, but for different reasons. It always has a place in my heart because that was the first game that my wife came to when we were still dating. So that game, that uniform, I'll always remember that was our first game together. So that is a little something, not to get overly mushy on the podcast, but that one's gonna be at the bottom otherwise. But I almost don't count that. That's like a prototype, if you will, for me. But my favorite, like the 20, I think it's, if I get this right, 17, 18, 19. That run, I don't know that we'll have three that good again. The original black one with the constellations, the white one that you mentioned, and I like that gray one that they did, where it was more citron. It was like the first one that was really citronaut heavy, or the other two before that was just UCF in a space uniform. My buddy Connor, who I believe you've met, he bought the gray one. That's like, he wears that to every game basically. We obviously don't have gray in our color wheel much anymore, so maybe it's just the nostalgia of that. But yeah, we don't really miss on these. And like I said, I'm looking forward to these. Might look sharp as heck on the field, even though the promotional stuff makes it a little harder to figure out.
Yeah, and maybe the uniforms will grow on me, this year's uniform, because I admit, like, there's some times in the past, like, oh, okay, it looks okay. And I was like, you know what, I love it. I know that just at least so far, I've just I think it's just the numbers. Maybe it's just kind of like the cosmic like zoom that they did, which is it's good. I can understand the creativity behind it. I just admit that I'm just more of like, hey, like keep the numbers solid. The only exception that I think I would say for that is the 2019 uniforms that are my favorite. They did put constellations in them,
Yeah.
which is again they very tastefully and just kind of clean, I guess, if you will. But yeah, I think that just the way that those the numbers are, and maybe it's just the cosmic zoom that's in it. It just didn't really speak to me. It doesn't make me want to get the jersey, at least not yet, but who knows, maybe they'll grow on me after I see that them in the flesh next Friday night.
Hey, if we win that game and that makes us bowl eligible our first year under Scott Frost in that uniform, that makes you want to buy it at that point.
You know what? I'll tell you what. If that happens, then I'll definitely consider getting the jersey.
All right, yeah. Blake's putting his money where his mouth is. I have also just our normal. I don't think we really touched on this much last time. Our new normal jerseys with the updated retro number font did wonders for the uniform. I think that they pop. Every variation I've seen this year popped. I've made a similar bet with myself that if we get bowl eligible, I will get one of the new normal jerseys. I'm probably the black one, maybe the white one. We'll see. But that is something I run out and buy it right away. I've only been to the one game this year, so I'm going to wait and let's see how that works. I bought plenty of other UCF merch this year, so don't worry about that, guys. But to wrap up the uniform, space uniform talk, all the helmets, he said they haven't missed on a single helmet. I forget which year it is. You may remember because you may have it in your office. I don't know. The year where they snuck all the names of UCF alum that have worked at NASA or in the space industry. They find a way to orchestrate that into the logo. I thought that was like an all-time like flex move on that. So I forget what year that correlated with, but that I thought was great.
I believe it was 2021. It was Gus Malzahn's first season.
Okay.
Because I'm pretty sure that that they had the decal set available for like donation to the Charge On Fund, and I believe I did see that, but I want to say it was 2021 in Malzahn's first year.
I do think the jersey I did the biggest 180 on though is the I guess it'd be 22, the all blue Canaveral blue one, because at first I'm like, all right, now we're getting a little too. This isn't even our colors. And again, maybe it was because RJ Harvey balled out in the rain and dominated the Cowboys, but and I guess he's used to dominating the Cowboys because he just scored 3 against Dallas this week. So shout out to RJ Harvey in the pros. He's having a great rookie season. I think he won Rookie of the Week this year. I voted for him a bunch of times this week. I know that much. But so shout out to RJ Harvey for that. But yeah, that was the one that I had the biggest turnaround. I'm like, I don't really know. Again, clean white helmet with the white font. Don't miss on the helmets. But yeah, I was a little, I don't know about this one, but after that, I'm like, how can you not love that uniform? And every time you see one, that's what you're going to think of.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, really, that was just a legendary game. I think he had like 208 or 212 rushing yards or something like that. So I feel like just like that's just an iconic thing. Like when they redo that football facility, which it seems like every couple of years they do, like they'll put the new nights in the NFL. They'll update the list of people who got drafted or even on practice squads and whatnot. They're probably going to have an image of RJ Harvey wearing that uniform, darting down the field for that what was it, a 90-something yard touchdown. So again, like that's just kind of like it's going to be pretty much an iconic image, if you will, almost up there with Blake Bortles when he was jumping into the end zone for that that rushing touchdown for the Fiesta Bowl. Not quite that high, but it's in the same category.
It is funny how like NCAA 25, the main menu screen, 2 of the like 4 pictures was RJ in that uniform. The Phil Steele magazine that came out that year for the regional cover, it had who's the QB for the Titans now. But it had one guy from each school, and RJ represented UCF on that cover in the space uniform. So that the pictures from that game have got around for sure. So before we get out of here, I appreciate your time. I know we've been wanting to do this for a while. I'm glad we were able to catch up and just kind of see where we are in the season. Outside of UCF, what is your biggest takeaways from the college football season this year? What's like the stuff that's kept your attention?
Honestly, that the league, the Big 12, I feel like has more of an opportunity to get 2 teams into the playoff than they did last year, just because of the way the ranking. I mean, of course, I know the CFP official rankings haven't come out, but let's be real. There's at least some, they factor in the AP poll to at least some degree. So what kind of stood out to me is I felt like, oh man, it's just going to be another year where, the Big 12 kind of cannibalizes each other, so to speak. But I've been pleasantly surprised to see Tech. They rose pretty high. I think they got as high as number 7 before losing. And then BYU, I think they're number 10 or number 11 now. And so I like to think that that the Big 12 is finally getting a little bit more respect in. And one hope I really have had for our conference is for us to get 2 teams into the CFP this year. And so I think that so far, like a great takeaway, a positive one, as someone who just roots for the Big 12 as a proud member for UCF, is that the conference seems to be performing really well in that regard. And my hope is that I know we played BYU and Tech this year, and I'm not expecting to win those games. If we win one of them, cool, great, awesome. But if not, I'd love to see those guys just go all the way and both get into the CFP. And that's just kind of my takeaways. That I think the Big 12 is slowly but surely kind of inching their way into being viewed a little bit more relevantly, so to speak.
We talked about this, I think, for a bit at the tailgate for the North Carolina game, that like, if in a different world, I wish UCF would have joined the ACC, just because we're old time thinkers that still thinks college football should be regionalized. So for that reason, like I would just get up for the opponents a little more. But when you get past that feeling, we are so lucky to be in the Big 12. The way the league is constructed, the commissioner, the way everything is put together, it's the best conference top to bottom, which is, of course, that's different than being the best conference, of course. But I think it still has something to say, like you said, that you can get multiple teams in, assuming they don't cannibalize each other too much anyway. But it really is. It's a crazy league to be in. It's a fun league to be in. Even the last place team or the team picked last can win everything. It's a little too Texas central for me, just being the Eagles fan that I am. But you look at the league at most, 4 or 5 teams in Texas. It's just how that's going to be. That takes a little getting used to. But no, I love the Big 12. It's fun. I hope we're here for a long time. The only reason I wouldn't want to be is if college football goes their senses and reshuffles everything in a way that is fair and makes sense. But other than that, Big 12, I'm very happy to be in. The thing that my biggest things is the saga of Arch Manning. Is he a bust? Is he the greatest quarterback of all time? This whole thing, it's been, I can only imagine being a Texas fan, because just as a neutral observer, it's been exhausting to watch. He loses a 1-touchdown game to Ohio State where he doesn't play well, beats a couple nobody teams, beats Oklahoma. That game's always going to matter to people. Didn't play great, but still beat Oklahoma. They win this crazy game in overtime where he gets hurt, so the backup has to lead him to victory. Just the saga of Arch Manning has been crazy to watch. And then outside of that, just the coach firings already. Brian Kelly at LSU, James Franklin at Penn State after the run they made last year, one game away from the national championship. We both talked about, like, as a team that was like going to sleepwalk into 10 wins every year, they're going to lose their 2 big games and then win all the others. They were going to be a mainstay in the playoff for years and years. And the bottom just broke out on them, losing to 2-win UCLA with an interim coach. And outside, I've mentioned this plenty of times, outside of UCF, the team I would root for the most, of course, is Penn State. And then FSU starting off with the win against Alabama, and then the floor breaking out on them, on Gus, on Tommy. Guys that I was still openly rooting for. I have no qualms about that. But it's been, outside of UCF, it's been a wild ride halfway through the year.
Oh yeah, no, and that's what just makes it even more entertaining to pay attention to, because like they're just, the unexpected will happen. Because if you would have told me, this time last year that James Franklin was going to be fired, maybe not leave for like another job or get called to the NFL or something, I would have been like, what? The team that's probably going to go to the CFP and they don't even have to win the Big Ten, so it is a wild run. And I know Mark Daniels touched on he had not to paraphrase him, what he said a couple weeks back when the firing actually happened. So they were like the number 3 or 4 team in the country, and then they go on that losing streak, and then 15 days later he's fired. They literally went from number 3 or 4 in the country to 2 weeks later being fired. And it's like, wow, that's a very dramatic shift of everything. And then Brian Kelly, of course, being let go, and it'll be interesting to see who takes that job. Maybe good old Ed will get a call. Go Tigers! So that'll be interesting to see as well.
Yeah, the Brian Kelly one, while surprising, a little less surprising, because that never seemed like a good fit. Like I would almost, it's like Gus Malzahn on steroids. Like, things worked here for a little bit, but it always looking back, it always kind of felt like, square peg round hole to an extent. We just jammed it hard enough that it kind of sort of fit for here for a little while, and then the dam broke. So that one a little less surprising. But the league that they're in, again, starting off great, finally winning that big kickoff game that's eluded them to start the year. Florida State was up to, a top 5 team in the country before all that went down. When we talk about the coach firing, I'll end on this. I heard this story recently. I don't know how old it is, but you mentioned Coach O, and it reminded me. He was getting interviewed about, like, I think it was a Barstool thing. It's like, so what was it like when you got fired from LSU? And he's like, well, they said, Coach, we're going to have to let you go. There's $17.1 million on your contract, and we're going to give it all to you. So I said, what time do you want me gone, and what door do you want to throw me out of? So that's, with some of these guys and the money they make, that's going to be their response. And that may be the one reason Norvell is still there, because of the amount they have to pay him. Because I would think after that loss to Stanford, he would have been, tarmacked, to use a Lane Kiffin term from back in the day. I think the money is the only thing keeping him there, but he's definitely got to turn it around. And again, Tommy's there. Gus, he beat the Gators here, so I'm never going to dunk on him too bad. They have a lot to turn around too. But that's about it for us, guys. I want to thank Blake for showing up today, and we finally got this in. We both very busy. Life's had us in the sleeper hold the past couple weeks, but I'm glad we found some time to do this. And I look forward to maybe a month from now we jump on and do a celebratory bowl eligible podcast. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Looking forward to it as well. Thank you, Phil.
All right. No problem, man. Thanks, guys, for watching. Phil Talk Sports is back to a regular schedule, somewhat regular schedule as it is. So we'll see you guys next time. Go Knights. Charge on.